Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can even earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Spotify for Podcasters has made our podcasting process so much easier and even has options like Q&As and polls so we can engage with listeners. I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
The following contains descriptions of physical violence, sexual violence, and graphic descriptions of autopsies. Welcome back, listeners. This is TGIC Podcast, episode 21. I'm Jillian.
And I'm Izzy.
Today we'll be covering another case recommended by fan Katniss. Thank you for your great case recommendations, Katniss. So remember, if you want to recommend a case, go to the subpage under the contact information tab on our website and fill out the linked form. We love and appreciate all of your recommendations. Anyway, so today we will be talking about our second disappearance of a Kristen. Kind of weird.
That is super weird.
We didn't even mean to do that. I honestly didn't realize until I was too far into the case. But we will be talking about the mysterious disappearance of Kristen Modafferi. So let's get started with some background. Kristen Modafferi was born on June 1st of 1979 in Danbury, Connecticut. You know what Danbury always reminds me of?
What?
They lived in Danville.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why. I always, when I hear Danbury, Connecticut, I think of Danville, where Phineas and Ferb lived.
I think of, Cadbury, Cadbury eggs.
My brother loves those.
I've never eaten one, actually.
They kind of look nasty.
They do kind of look gross.
I don't know. They just kind of give me weird vibes. Anyway, so she was born in Danbury, Connecticut, and her parents are Debbie and Bob Modafferi. Her mom was a teacher and her dad was an electrical engineer. She also had two sisters. She moved to Charlotte, North Carolina at a pretty young age and just grew up there. It doesn't really say how old she was when she moved there, but it's basically said she grew up there. So that pretty much implies very young elementary school age.
Yeah.
Super smart. She skipped a grade in elementary school. She had straight A's and she had a near perfect score on her SATs.
I'm so jealous of that.
She was also awarded a Park Scholarship. Shoot, why can't I say words today? Okay. She was awarded a Park Scholarship, which covered all 4 years of college tuition. And I think
that's insane.
I think it was a special state scholarship. I don't know exactly how that works, but you know how Georgia has the Hope Scholarship? I think it was that for North Carolina.
Oh, got it.
Okay, so she was attending and had just completed her freshman year at North Carolina State University at the time of her disappearance. She was studying industrial design. She was super passionate about art and did a lot of painting and photography. So actually, when she disappeared, she was in California attending a summer photography program at the University of California at Berkeley. Kristen had to convince her parents a ton to go here, which that's totally understandable. I mean, going across the country for a summer program kind of sounds awesome, but I would have to convince my parents forever.
Yeah, especially since she was only around 18 or 19 at the time.
Mm-hmm. So they were really concerned about her being so far away and alone, but Kristen just really wanted to prove how responsible and independent she could be, which I totally get. That sounds just a really good opportunity, and I really
yeah. And I mean, especially if she was so passionate about art and she really wanted to pursue it when she was older, that's such an important thing.
Mm-hmm. So her parents did finally agree to let her go, and leading up to her disappearance, they thought she was just flourishing in California. She called them all the time. She said how great everything was. She had this great job. She found a place to live. So everything just seemed really great. So, Izzy, you want to get into the timeline?
Yeah, so June 23rd of 1997 was the day that she disappeared. So the afternoon of June 23rd, Kristen had gone off of her final shift at Spinelli's, which was a coffee shop that she was working at in the Crocker Galleria Mall. And she Yeah, it is a total tongue twister. And she actually had left work at about 3 p.m. And prior to leaving, she had told some of her coworkers that she was planning on attending a party at Baker Beach. And about 45 minutes after she left her work, her coworkers claimed that they saw Kristen with a blonde woman in the mall. And I mean, this has never been proven, and the blonde woman has never been identified.
Mysterious.
And which is, yeah, really mysterious. And at some point in the afternoon, she was also seen by security footage withdrawing money from a bank and that was the last time that she's ever been seen.
What's with like crime cases and they're like always last seen in a bank? Like if they really could have been anywhere else, it's just like banks have security footage.
Exactly. I mean, when you think about that, if like it's so weird to think about if I went missing, where would the last place I would have been seen be? You know what I mean?
That would probably be Starbucks.
Yeah, yours would definitely be Starbucks. I don't know where mine would be. Probably yeah, I have no idea.
That would be such like a fun like activity to like pick where we'd be last seen before going missing.
That's would. That is really dark.
Think about it, like places you are often. I don't know.
Yeah.
I never really thought about it. Like there's a ton of places I could probably go missing. I could probably go missing walking to school, but probably not.
Exactly. I mean, that's one of those things. I mean, I've only heard of like a few crime cases where a kid has gone missing going to school. But I feel like
they always go missing like on a bus. Like, you know, like little kids, they always go missing like at a bus stop or something.
Exactly. Or when they're riding their bikes. Or
you could just be like Kyron Horman and just literally disappear from the elementary school.
True. Okay, so speaking of disappearing, June 24th of 1997 was a day that Kristen didn't show. So when Kristen failed to attend her first photography class at UC Berkeley, that was super weird because she had already paid a $925 fee for the summer. So it's just really weird. And then also she hadn't shown up to work to collect a $400 paycheck for like the week or months prior.
$400 is quite a lot. I'm going to go work at a coffee place.
Exactly. Like that's probably a majority tips too, if you think about it.
Especially that was like the 90s. Like you could only think that like it's gotten more since.
Yeah. And on June 23rd, her roommates noted that she hadn't returned home the night prior. However, they never reported her missing, and they failed to alert her parents or others that she had been absent. And June 26th, which is a few days later, Kristen's father called the house that she had been living in and left a voicemail that asked why he hadn't heard from her in a few days. And one of her 4 male roommates, like a New Girl situation.
She was like living New Girl.
Literally, yeah.
Wait, that's so cool.
Yeah, I know, right? And I mean,
awesome.
Yeah, but they returned the call and said that they hadn't seen Kristen in 3 days.
What?
Yeah, 3 days. I mean, if your roommate doesn't come home for 3 days, you need to tell someone like ASAP.
Okay, but like also she was kind of new to the area. Like, I don't know. That doesn't seem that weird. Like maybe they just weren't close or something. But like I'd like to think that if Jess went missing in New Girl, they would have all been like on it in like a day or less.
Exactly. And June 27th was just the day after this. Kristen's parents were worried sick, and they chose to fly to San Francisco in order to like report their daughter missing, which they did, and they reported it to the Oakland Police Department. And they stalled the investigation until Monday, June 30th, due to the fact that she was not a quote-unquote high-risk case.
Okay, that's so annoying because, like, what does qualify you for being a high-risk case? You're missing. That's high risk.
Exactly. For multiple days, you're new to the area. It's not like you have somewhere to go. She missed a bunch of classes that she had already paid for. She hadn't picked up her paycheck. That seems high risk to me. I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like there's very obvious signs if someone's a runaway, and I guess runaway would not be considered high risk, but like still, like,
yeah.
I don't know.
And I think
she's still a teenager. Just because she's an adult doesn't make her like not like a teenager.
And if anything, she was just barely shy of it being like a quote unquote teenager. Like was she 18 or 19?
18.
She was 18. Like, I think she should still be qualified as a teenager at that point.
Actually, she may have just turned 19. Wait, trying to do the math. I think maybe she just turned 18.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just turned 18.
But her parents had also come in order to help with search efforts if they were necessary later in the process. And June 30th, 1997 was finally when the police started investigating. And they started by using bloodhounds to attempt to trace Kristen's scent from Spinelli's. And they actually got a trace that led them to a bus stop that was outside of the Galleria. However, the scent stopped right there. Okay. And I mean, yeah, isn't that really weird? And this led police to believe that she had gotten onto the bus to go somewhere. However, I mean, that somewhere is unknown. She could have literally been just going home.
Yeah, like, it's not like one of those things. It's not like it led to some random ass car, like the bus. Like, she didn't have a car in California. That was probably her way of transportation. It's not that strange.
Yeah, exactly. And, okay, this is kind of weird. I was thinking about this part, like, when I was researching, but the Modafferi's, what is it?
I think, I've been saying it Modafferi.
Okay, Modafferi's pulled a newspaper out of the garbage can at the Galleria, and a personal ad had been circled.
Okay, wait, hold on. I'm gonna have to, like, step through this. Okay, yeah. So her parents found a newspaper in a trash can. How did they do that?
Yeah, I don't even know how they pulled it. They just, like, decided to pull it out, and an ad had been circled, and the ad read...
Hold on. I'm still gonna need to process the fact that they were digging around in a trash can and pulled out something that had, like, a thing circled on it. You ever see that episode of Jessie where they, like, I'm trying to remember this episode. They were on that, like, news thing, and then, like, Emma got kicked off of it, and then she, like, found something in the trash. It was, like, someone like planted, like, a fake news story, but it was literally, like, labeled. Like, this seems like one of those things. I'm here with the Disney Channel references today.
Yeah, I was about to say, I feel like we referenced it, like, Jessie or a Disney Channel show in every single episode.
You know, that's what we're here for. No one else does it.
Yeah. So the ad read, "Friends," in all caps. Female seeking friends to share activities who enjoy music, photography, working out, walks, coffee, or simply the beach, exploring the Bay Area. Interested? Call me.
Why would you ever put out one of those ads?
I don't know. That just seems really desperate. But
that would bother me. Also, I would never want to. This is really bad. I would never want to be friends with someone who, like, put one out. Like, that seems desperate.
Yeah, and I mean, it is really sad. And police believe that the ad could have been placed by Kristen in order to find, like, either a significant other or just more friends in her new city, or they believe that she could have been responding to it.
Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So that is really weird. And I mean, many speculate that the ad could have been either from the blonde woman, or the blonde woman could have been responding to it when her and Kristen met in the mall.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah.
I could kind of follow that. It's a little like, I don't know how you say it, like, very loosely connected, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Especially since the ad couldn't have been traced to either Kristen or the blonde woman.
And the blonde woman's never been, like, confirmed as a person?
Yeah. Like, that isn't even... Yeah, exactly. And I mean, they couldn't have... like, the newspaper apparently dumps all of their records after a week, which I find to be super dumb. But anyway, so they literally couldn't have told the police who placed that ad.
Weird. Okay, so I'm going to get into some suspects for this case a little bit. Now, the timeline was kind of, like, I don't know, short and abrupt, but, like, there wasn't too much going on. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
I noticed that with this case, like, they seem to actually have a lot of, like, investigation stuff, which we've been missing out on a lot lately. But, like, their timeline was a little strange, like, very just choppy. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
So our first suspect is the unidentified blonde. So this is the woman that we were just talking about. She was seen talking to at the mall on the day that she disappeared. And so her existence is, like, not even confirmed. So this is probably a totally false lead. And, like, she's not even necessarily a suspect, just more of a person of interest, because if she was seen talking to Kristen, she would have been, like, the last person seen.
Yeah.
Right before she went missing. So it's actually suspected, like Izzy was saying, that she was the one who had responded to that personal ad, if that was the case. Or maybe she was the one who put it out and Kristen had responded. It's kind of suspected that that's how they met. And so you could totally blow that those are, like, loosely connected, and, like, this could have just been a passing interaction, or this interaction could have never even happened. But I think it's important to note that the witness who saw them talking said that they seemed like good friends because they were standing like really close together, and it like they were talking a lot. Like it didn't seem like one of those like brief conversations with a stranger, like, oh, I like your pants, oh, I like your shoes. Like not like that. Like it seemed like they were friends.
That's so weird because, I mean, I just feel like it's so weird that this woman has never come forward or they've never even like identified her. You know what I mean?
No, so that's the thing I always find weird when they have like unidentified witnesses or persons of interest. Like unless you're actually guilty of something, like what's stopping you from like stepping out and just saying, "Oh yeah, I was briefly friends with Kristen. This is what I know," and that's it.
Exactly. Like if she came forward or if she's even a real person, like you could probably get so much information from her, like where Kristen was going or you know what I mean?
So that's why I have to think that she's either like super guilty of something or she's just not real.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe this witness was just really dying to be involved in the case.
Or maybe they just didn't see Kristen and they saw like a girl with brown hair talking to another blonde woman. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It literally could have been anything. It could have been someone she worked with and like they just didn't connect the dots. Or like maybe she had like strawberry blonde hair, so the police were like, oh, it's a redhead, not a blonde. And then I don't know, people can totally interpret things. Like I feel like you could say I'm blonde, but you could also say I have like more light brown hair. It's arguable.
Yeah, exactly.
So another suspect we have here is this guy named John Onuma. I'm actually not quite sure if that's how you say that, so I'm just going to go with it. John Onuma. So I really don't know where to start with this nut job. So I'm just going to start with our own like little mini timeline. So on June 10th of 1997, which is, I don't know, how many days after her disappearance was that? Oh.
It's
before.
It's somehow before.
Wait.
I think it might have been July 10th.
Oh, sorry. I totally must have not written that down. Okay, so on July 10th of 1997, a phone call came in to ABC, and it is this guy calling to put in a tip saying that two lesbians had kidnapped and killed Kristen and then dumped her body under a bridge in Marin because of a love triangle.
What?
Yes.
First off, how would he know that they were two lesbians?
Like, no, it's a love triangle, Izzy. It's a made-up love triangle.
Oh my god. Okay.
So they like track this guy down, and it's this guy John Onuma, and he just like straight up denies making the call, but then he eventually admits to it.
What?
And it was like kind of investigated because I guess they didn't have a lot of leads at the time. And two women who I suppose they were the ones who were connected to be like these lesbians, but I don't really know. Like, I don't know how they found these two women, but apparently they said that John was just mad at them because they fired his girlfriend because they all worked together or something.
Oh my god, that's so petty.
What the hell? So then John like admits this because they like, you know, figured him out, and then he admits that he just learned about the case on TV and decided it'd be fun to like, you know, get his revenge on them through this.
What?
So it's just like a totally weird incident, and so the police wanted to like investigate John further as a person of interest because, you know, his tip could have been a cover-up or he could have known something. I don't know. It's weird. And so then these three women just come out saying that he had abused and tortured them. And he also had this MO of luring women by responding to their personal ads, like the one that Kristen had put out.
Oh my god.
Like basically like catfishing them, like seeing these ads and then saying like, oh yeah, I'm a teenage girl too, and I love coffee. I don't like that kind of thing.
That's so creepy.
Yeah, and so one of his victims, this is like the cherry on the freaking creepy cupcake, because one of his victims had also said that he had threatened to do the same thing to her as he had done to Kristen.
What?
So like, I don't know what this guy's deal is, but the police were onto him too. So they did this search of John's girlfriend's apartment. I don't know why they searched her apartment, not his.
Maybe he like lived there mainly or something.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe he just didn't have like a permanent residence, I guess.
Yeah.
So they found her diary and many pages were ripped out during the time surrounding Kristen's disappearance. He had said that John had ripped them out and claimed that they could be incriminating.
Oh Oh my, what? How is this guy not in jail?
Yeah, I don't know. But apparently he took a polygraph test. He was just like, no, I don't know. This is like not me. So I'll tell you the truth. So he took this polygraph test and apparently he passed. But like, you know, in my personal opinion and like anyone else's personal opinion, polygraphs are so unreliable.
Literally.
Like, if you are like a master manipulator, which clearly this guy is based on like what he's done to other people, like he could totally know how to fake out a polygraph.
Exactly. Or if you're a sociopath or psychopath and you don't like experience normal emotions, you could totally fake it.
Totally. So this, I guess, because he passed, encouraged the police to let him go. And there's just been no other updates for the suspect. Like, he's basically...
That's so irritating. I feel like they have enough circumstantial evidence to take him to trial.
They honestly do. And, like, not that, like, I'm saying... Like, I feel like that's how... Like, this is enough. I don't know what the problem is. And, like, there's not really much of a connection to Kristen, I guess, but I guess they have the MO thing that kind of matches. Like, I don't know why there was no more investigation. Like, after the polygraph, it was just like, oh, well, maybe next time we'll try another suspect.
Yeah, that's really weird. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Robert Durst. And, I mean, we see this in a lot of cases. So he's a serial killer who was in the area at the time. And, I mean, honestly, that's his only connection to Kristen. And, I mean... Okay, we see this so many times where people will connect serial killers or like serial rapists to cases just because they're there at the same time or whatever, or they're like kind of have the same MO. But I mean, honestly, he's like a super unlikely suspect because he's only ever killed people that he knew, which were his wife, friend, and neighbor. And it doesn't appear that he knew Kristen in any way.
Yeah,
so
it's all you can tell, like, it's very not common for like a killer to start with like killing people that he was very close with. Like, it said like it was like his best friend, his wife, a neighbor he was good friends with. Like, you don't start killing those people and then just all of a sudden pick some teenage girl to go kill.
Exactly. Like, a lot of people say that your crimes can get more violent as you become more, I guess, like skilled as a serial killer, but I don't think he would change. It seems like his MO is people that he's close with or connected with. Yeah. So yeah, you're totally right. Why would he target some random girl he doesn't know?
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially just because you can never like you couldn't even say that they had like some sort of like brief passing relationship where he would like come into the coffee shop and talk to her. Like, there's none of that. So it's just really unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we broke up the theories a little bit today. So we're going to start with the original investigation theories. So these were like the highest probability theories, I guess, when they were first investigating this case. So the first one would be a planned disappearance. So this is just always a possibility with missing persons cases. I mean, it always is. Like, it just is. I don't know. Like, they always consider it, like, especially when they're not children, which, despite being like freshly 18, she wasn't technically a kid. So they like investigate it, and they also had picked up her scent at a bus station, which I guess could indicate that she was trying to go somewhere, but this also could just be a sign that she was going back to her apartment or that beach party. Like, all things that are like not very uncommon and make a lot of sense. Like, I don't think the bus is too much of a like indicator of her wanting to leave.
Yeah.
And it's not like she was going to like one of those big bus stations, like a Greyhound or something, to like cross state lines. Like, she was taking like a local bus.
Mm-hmm.
So also, this is just a totally ruled out theory because she had not picked up that $400 paycheck that from her work for the past like weeks or months or whatever. And like, why would she leave without the money? Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's like runaway 101. You want the $400 paycheck.
Exactly.
And also her like summer program, which she was so excited for and like had to convince her parents to go on, had already been paid for. Why would she go through all that work to get in, to convince her parents, to have her like parents or her pay for it? Like, why? And then just leave. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, none of that makes any sense. And I mean, I guess you associate this theory with a lot of cases that are like no body, no leads cases. So you don't really have a lot of evidence. I guess it's kind of easy for people to just up and vanish nowadays. I mean,
yeah,
not so much now, but in the 90s where not a lot of people had like mobile phones and stuff.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't
it's a
know.
lot easy. It was a lot easier. Like, there was no social media. There was no like tracking on your phone. Like, I don't know. It was a lot easier to leave things behind, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna get into the abducted theory, which again is another one of those short, just always kind of there theories with cases like this. But the
The
theory is
abducted
basic.
theory makes like a lot of sense though, because
It does.
stranger kidnapping.
True. And I mean, the theory is basically that a stranger kidnapped her sometime after leaving work, and maybe when she was on the bus or on her way to the party or back to her house. And I mean, she was either held captive or been held captive or she was murdered. And I mean, this is likely, but also unlikely, if that makes sense, because no evidence has ever been found to corroborate that she'd been abducted or murdered by a stranger, but there's also nothing to disprove it.
Yeah, well, that's how I always feel. I always feel like if you can't substantiate like another theory, that it's pretty likely that it was a stranger.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know, it just kind of makes a lot of sense. Like with the personal ad, like we were talking about that guy, like that she didn't know, like John, what's his face? He would have totally fit the bill for a stranger kidnapping.
exactly. And I
And like,
mean,
so could anyone else.
and especially, have you heard about that thing that's like if you're someone who's new to a like city or new to a town and you're often targeted more off like you're often targeted by murderers or serial killers because you looked so disoriented almost. You know what I mean? Like you look like you're
You're unfamiliar
not,
with the area. You could like
yeah,
offer help. It's a lot like easier to intercept their path.
exactly.
Okay, so another theory we have is that she was then injured and then became really disoriented and just lost her way. So this theory kind of begins with she was injured in some kind of accident that affected her memory. Probably not a car accident of any kind, but like, I mean, I don't know, could have really been anything. Like she could have just bonked her head hard. Um, and so because of this disorientation, she wandered away, or someone took her in a heightened state of vulnerability. So basically, this is the Patricia Maheen theory. So Patricia Maheen, if you're not familiar, this was the case that we did for episode 14. So if you have not listened to that, like totally go listen, because I mean, it's her case is like one of the few ones that is like we have that's not very true crimey, but kind of just like mysterious and strange and like
Yeah, and interesting.
yeah, so it's kind of interesting that there's this little theory in this case that's kind of connected just like hers is. So that's basically what it is. It's the Patricia McKean theory. She was injured, she got disoriented, and then she basically like, I don't know, wandered off into the distance because she couldn't remember, or she couldn't remember and someone just took advantage of that.
Hmm. Okay, so this theory is kind of in a different category than like the original theories. I came up with this one like 10 minutes, not 10 minutes ago, like 45 minutes ago, but it's basically the roommate theory. And I mean, I totally made this up, and I've never really heard it anywhere else, but all the evidence has me thinking that maybe it's probable. So, starting off, Kristen had four male roommates, which is not a problem, and it seemed kind of like a new girl situation. And I mean, that's totally fine to have four male roommates. I just don't think they were very close.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like she was just there for a short amount of time and they had a room available.
Yeah. And recent evidence has me thinking that maybe it's a possibility that something had happened to Kristen in the house. Could be an accident or purposeful, and her roommates tried to cover it up by making her, like, quote unquote, disappear.
Okay.
So the first thing I have to support this is that she had, like what I said earlier, she'd been missing for 3 days, and her roommates hadn't told anyone because they assumed, this is what they said, they basically assumed that she had met some guy and she had just been staying with him.
Okay.
Which,
Like, I don't know. I am in no way like trying to like defend these guys because I don't know what their deal is. But like they don't know her that well. She totally could have met a guy and was just staying there. And like if they don't know her, that means that they don't really know her parents. So they're not gonna like call her parents. They probably don't even know how to get in touch with her parents. And like they're not gonna call the police because it doesn't seem like a big problem. And like they're these guys in their like late teens, early 20s, they're probably not very smart, Izzy.
I mean, true, but how could no alarm bells have been going off in their heads except, like, they only warned someone of her absence when her father called, wondering where the hell she'd been.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there was also more hard evidence found in 2015 that I believe totally supports this theory. And I'm going to get into that a little bit right now. So, in 2015, an independent search had been conducted of the house that Kristen had been staying in. And during the search, they decided to use a cadaver dog. And the cadaver dog that they had used had a quote unquote world class reputation. And it had actually, yes, he was a famous puppy, a famous little cadaver dog puppy. Aww. So that's like so cute. Okay, anyway. It had alerted the authorities of the presence of human remains in the basement. And I mean, that's kind of bad. I feel like you can't disprove that in any way. But Paul Dostie.
Ignore that, yeah.
Yeah. Paul Dostie or Dostie, who owned the dog and was a previous police sergeant, urged police to re-interview Kristen's roommates at the time and to remove the concrete slab to check for remains.
Okay.
And the police honestly kind of just like brushed this guy off. They were like, okay, that's not our investigation, so it doesn't really matter. And in 2017, which is 2 years later, a further chemical scan had been conducted in this property and the property next door. And it alerted the authorities that this crime scene had been messy. What? Like messy. They got blood from like, they could tell that it had been all over the basement and like in part of the next door, and someone had tried and like wiped it up.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and that there had also been a presence of human decomposition, and they actually got some decomposing like DNA matter that they could use. And these traces were tested against the Modafferis, and they were a freaking match.
So it's Kristen's.
Yeah, they were a partial match, which means that it's like very, very likely Kristen's blood.
Because it doesn't make sense that it would be like her sister's blood, and that would really be the only choice.
Exactly. And when all of this information was shared with the police department from these private investigators and all of these like chemical analysis specialists, the police department claimed that they had to do their own investigation, which would be quote unquote straightforward. However, there has not been any developments provided by police in the past few years, and no formal interrogations were done of her roommates, which I think is BS.
Seriously, because you know what? Even if they're not like guilty, or even if they don't want to consider them as suspects, why don't you interview them and just see if anyone weird had come over to the house?
Exactly. And I mean, especially because they found her blood and evidence of a quote-unquote messy crime scene in the basement of the house she had been living in. Like, why did they not take these guys more seriously? Like, their names haven't even been released to the public. I just don't, and they haven't even attempted to disprove this theory. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And honestly, like, them, like, just being re-interviewed, I feel like all this evidence doesn't even necessarily imply that it was them. Like, she could have met some stranger, creepy guy who, like, they went back to their house and then he killed her in the basement. Like, that is a possibility, and actually, like, that happens. Like,
exactly.
Or someone could have broken in.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many probabilities. Like, why not just re-interview the roommates?
And I mean, like, just the fact that it was so messy that they even found blood, like, next door, like, is insane.
Super strange. Okay, so that was kind of all of our, like, suspects and theories for this case, but I wanted to share because this case also has a bit of true crime history, similar to our Amber Alert episode and our episode about the case of Johnny Gosch. So Kristen's Act is a law that provided additional support for missing persons over the age of 17. So in her case, because she was 18, there was a lack of support and resources because she was a legal adult. And in many cases that involve adults, they're labeled low-risk case, which usually stalls investigation efforts. So like we were saying, like, they stalled the investigation for a few days because she was considered not a high-risk case, which is kind of BS. So this act worked to heavily fund the National Center for Missing Adults, but unfortunately this law was only funded from 2000 to 2005, so it's no longer federally funded, but it has continued to some extent through volunteer efforts.
And I feel like that's so important. Like, that's something that should be supported more and there should be more donations going towards that, because I feel like in so many cases, cases involving adults aren't taken seriously.
Yeah, I know.
And they could have been solved so much faster.
And you have to think about anywhere, like anytime someone is kidnapped, it's kidnapped. Like they're already prioritizing kids over adults. Like I understand that kids are most likely like taken against their will, but like adults can be just like the same. Like I don't know why those cases are just not taken as seriously. Like they're just as much of a big deal.
I totally agree.
Anyway, this was the unsolved case of Kristen Modafferi. Tune in next week for another mysterious case, and make sure to share your thoughts with us on our blog or our Instagram at tgic.podcast.
Bye!
Leave the Lights On is a true crime podcast with a paranormal twist. Join creator Eliza and her co-host as they explore terrifying true stories and chilling crimes. Growing up, Eliza had an odd obsession with the darkest desires of humanity and an insatiable curiosity about the afterlife. Now, each week, Eliza brings you tales that will make you want to lock your doors, hide in your room, and of course, leave the lights on. Available on Spotify and Apple Podcast.